Today we're going to be breaking down some underwater footage that I filmed over the summer. I've got heaps of interesting footage from just this one day of dropping the camera down, and our first spot is over some sand. After the camera comes upright, we can see some teriyaki in the background. The spot we're dropping over is a little sand flat just nearby a couple of isolated rocks. Now these fish do love to hang out just nearby rocks and often feed on the sand. You can see just behind them a blue cod is finning along with a couple of smaller ones behind him also. These can be found in a similar area to teriyaki, but definitely prefer more reefy spots. As I pull up to go to the next spot, we've got a kingfish and a couple of trevally, all in a single school. That kingfish, probably well over legal by the looks of it. Sometimes it can be very different depending on where you drop for water visibility. This spot here has much less viz than further out to sea. These fish here that are just cruising around are juvenile ruby fish, which are something rarely seen. A little while later and we have our first sea perch, a very common sight to grab a bait out of nowhere. Later on, our baits are covered with leather jackets trying to remove our Fishbites, and a snapper comes in to investigate. Now sometimes you just get plain lucky where you drop your line, and I've got it sandwiched between the sand and this rock, which is a prime location for all sorts of different creatures. First up is a sea perch, and then a large bastard cod. Along with this we've got a crayfish and even a nice blue cod which is easily legal size. Even a nice snapper comes past to see what's going on. Now as we drift further along this rocky edge, the bastard cod starts to take interest in the baits, and we even have a conger eel coming along. Further on in the background there's actually a poor-eye checking out the crayfish, and more different species all over the place. Now if you're wondering why I haven't wound this fish in yet, it's very hard to actually realise if there's a small fish on the line. So this sea perch is just sitting here on the rock, resting as I drift him along. Now unluckily a John Dory hasn't found him, but this bastard cod has finally made the decision to take the top bait. And as we sit here with the two fish on the line, still unable to feel what's really going on, a snapper is trying to steal a bait from the sea perch. Along with him, a blue cod thinks it's a good idea to have a go too. Funnily enough, just out of shot, the sea perch gets the hook ripped out of his mouth and a dwarf scorpionfish eats it instead. Now that I've noticed the bite on the rod, I wind into it and can feel some weight there, so I bring them up to the surface. Not knowing all the carnage that's going on down there, I drop the baits back down and immediately have a crayfish underneath them, and off to the right, another one. Off in the corner of this clip, there's actually a crayfish that's grabbed my other line and it's actually hooked itself. This crayfish was properly hooked and I'd actually managed to get him all the way to the surface to put him in the back of the boat. Now knowing what was going on the bottom, the camera was left to sit on the sand to see what might happen. This clip here has just got to be one of the most insane things I've ever filmed. Leaving it down there for just 10 seconds and a crayfish already grabbed the bait in front of the camera. I was lucky enough to get the shot and then lift the camera up, and the crayfish actually was hooked here, and he's up off the bottom here and in real danger of being eaten by literally anything up there. So he lets go, and a blue cod also is coming after it. Further through the drift, this same fish comes back and hails the bait, but this blue cod doesn't want just one. He spots the other and takes both of them. There's so much going on in this clip. There's 6 crayfish, a little school of trevally going past, and another crayfish actually eating the bait on the right hand side. 2 of them, if you can believe it. It was almost a double hook up there as I dropped it into them. Now, as we drift away further from the rocks, we begin to come along the sand flats, and often you'll find little schools of trevally, as we had a little one going past there, and even some Gurnard, and this one's come way up off the bottom to come check out the camera and the baits. You can see with how good the visibility is, we can see how far they swim up to grab the bait. You can definitely see how blue that water is on this overcast, windless day that I'm out on. And I'm just winding them up here, and we'll get them to the surface and then get that camera back down to see what else is going on. Now, usually when you get one fish, it means a lot more are usually on the way. So once those baits went back down, I changed over to a bit of tuna and an original snapper snatcher flavour. Some kahawai had come in. With 2 Gurnard coming along on the bottom, it looks like they were going to be the more aggressive fish on the day, which was great for me. With scattered marks going along the bottom on my sounder, it wouldn't be long before another fish would take a liking to the bait. Once we made it back to the bottom, there were more fish waiting for us. The first one comes in for a look, noses it, does not take it. The second one goes along the bottom, not too interested either. The fish seem to just be cruising now. Now, despite not showing aggressive behaviour, they're still showing interest but not committing. And this can often happen on the sounder, where you're marking fish and they're just not eating. A lot of the fish in this session went up to the camera to inspect it, but then went over to my left hand rod to grab the bait without the massive metal thing above it. It kind of checks out because I wouldn't go up to a camera and eat a bait underneath it with that much commotion going on.
No. There you go.
Back down to the bottom we go, into this incredible visibility. And the Gurnard are just being silly now. Sitting right next to the baits, walking along the bottom, they're giving us a cool insight into how they sit, feed, and also relax. As we pull out of shot, a hagfish is swimming past on the right and the Gurnard heads off to the left. Thankfully that hagfish doesn't stick around long, and a separate Gurnard who looks very keen comes straight in. Despite not taking the bait, another one soon joins him, but as you can see, they keep heading off in that other direction. That's towards my other baits. We now have a pack of 3 fish underneath the boat, trying to compete for the baits. The more fish there are, usually the more likely they're going to take. This one is all over it, but the hooks just aren't getting him. As I pull out, you can see just how many fish are sitting down there. Since we're having such a good session and putting so many fish in the back, a lot of these fish are getting released. We get our fun out of seeing how they behave underwater, and then they can go back and continue to breed. If you just watch him, he's going to sit there and park up. This is how Gurnard will sit and rest on the bottom, wings folded in and legs extended, ready to walk along the bottom in case anything comes along in front of them. With a very delicate take, a kahawai has come in and smashed the bait. With this final fish surfacing, we now had more than enough fish to take home and heaps of clips to check out when we got back on the beach. The incredible amount of observations that I made throughout this video is something that you don't see every day. So I hope everyone enjoyed a special look at a full day underwater with my camera.